Today I want to talk about EFS. EFS is Elastic File System, AWS EFS. It's what we call file storage. Yeah, so it is a shared file storage on AWS, and it is managed. It is a fully managed service by AWS. So it basically makes things much easier for you. So we basically use this when you want to share, workloads. So for example, let's say you're in a company where all employees need to have access to a particular drive. This is exactly what EFS comes to help you with. So let's just dive right into it, and let me tell you how you set it up. Now, before we set it up, I'd like to actually, before we set it up, I had to create my own network. I like setting up my own network for things like this. So let me just open this and open a VPC. So we're going to set up a VPC, and then inside VPC we're going to set up everything. And we're even going to use S3 in this to demonstrate how you would use EFS. So for this region, let me see how many. We only have one VPC. Let's see. So this is the default VPC. So we're going to create a new VPC, and for this part, we're not going to do step by step. We're just going to use the automatic. So we're just going to do EFS. I'm just going to call it demo. Right. That everything works fine. For me, availability zone can be as much as 3. That's okay. Public subnet 3 is okay. I'm not going to use private subnets in this, and I'm not going to use a NAT gateway. Neither am I going to use an S3 gateway in this case. So enable DNS host resolution, and those I'm going to set that. So we're going to set up our own VPC quickly, and then we make sure it works. Perfect. So now we have our VPC. Our VPC is well set up. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to go to security groups. I want to set up a security group that I'm going to use throughout this particular demo. So I'm going to create a security group, and I'm going to call it EFS demo, and I'm going to call it SG. SG stands for security group. So now this is a demonstration, so I'm not going to set up the specific traffic to allow. But if this is a workload that is in production, you need to specify specifically what traffic you want. So I'm going to just allow all traffic for this to work. So I'm going to set it up on my VPC demo, and the rule that I want to do here in this case, inbound outbound rule, is I'm going to allow all traffic. Yeah, so all traffic, I'm going to allow all traffic. Custom is anyway IPv4. So these are the traffic rules that I'm going to allow for my security group. Perfect. Okay. So now that I've set up my security group, the next thing I want to do is now I want to set up my EFS shared drive. I want to set up my EFS shared drive so that we do. So we already have a network, we have a security group. Now we want to set up our EFS. So one thing we talk about EFS, it stands for Elastic File System. The fact that it's elastic talks about elasticity, meaning with this one, it scales in and out. So you're going to see that when we are setting up EFS, we do not specify hard drive size. We do this for things like FSX for Windows File Server, Lastia, and OpenZFS. Yeah, but specifically for EFS, we do not specify size, because size will scale depending on how much data you put in there. So let's just call it this EFS. We're going to call it EFS demo, right? It's going to sit here. So we could as well create this, but we want to check out all the other options. So let's do our customization. So you can decide whether you want to make it regional or one zone. One zone means it's in one particular zone. Regional makes it scalable, so it spans across availability zones. Now automatic backups you can set up. So this also has like lifecycle policies like S3 buckets. So you can say if anything hasn't been touched in 14 days, I can move it to archive. And in archive, if in the standard EFS, if it hasn't been touched in 14 days, it goes to infrequent access, and if it hasn't been touched, let's say in another 30 days, it goes into archive. And you can also say in this case, if data that is already in archive or infrequent access is touched, you can transition it back into standard, basically. So you can do all that and set that up. You can do encryption scheme. So by default, encryption is set up, so you don't have to handle that. But if you want to make your own encryption, you can create a AWS key management service. We're not going to do that. You can do that by yourself. And then we have throughput mode bursting. So with throughput, it depends. If your workload is that, if you have a workload that is very different. Sometimes it goes very high, sometimes very low. Bursting will work for you. But if it's something that is very level-headed, enhanced is just okay to work with. We can also provision your throughput if you specifically know how much throughput is going to be needed within your work. Yeah, you can provision that. So after that, let's just go to next. Now in this case, we're going to set up our security groups for our EFS access. So in this case, I'm going to have the SG demo that I made. I'm going to set up the security group as well. I'm going to set up, and like I said, if you're running this in production, you want to specifically make sure your security group or filters traffic, just the traffic that you need, yeah, so that you don't have somebody doesn't compromise you. So far for that, we just do that, and we basically sit down and done. So it's creating our EFS shared file server. Yeah. So now we have our drive. So you know about NAS. So if you know about something like NAS, yeah. So it's like in your home, you have your computers, and then you set up a NAS so that everybody can access. That is exactly what Amazon Elastic File System is. So this is now at scale. If you're in a company, you can actually set this up. So now we have it, it's ready, and you can see total size is 6 KB. Yeah, so we're at a 6 KB. So depending on how much data you input inside here, it's going to scale. If you put 100 gigabytes, it's going to scale to 100 gigabytes. That makes sure you only pay for how much storage you're using. If you take out data, it will scale back in to, let's say, 1 gigabyte. So in order to be able to access this, let's spin up some compute. So no, I don't need a VPC. I don't need a VPC. Sorry, I need an EC2 instance. I need an EC2 instance. So let's spin up some EC2s and see how this actually works. So we're going to spin up EC2 instances. Perfect. We're going to spin up EC2 instances. We're going to spin up. Okay, takes a little bit of time to load. It's taking a little bit of time to load. It's taking a little bit of time to load. So come here, and I'm going to launch an instance. EFS demo. So we're going to just call this EFS demo. I like to use Ubuntu. Ubuntu is usually my of choice. And in this case, do I have an EFS demo? I think I have one that I already set up. I have a key pair that I already set up. If you don't, you create one. So EFS demo is here. I believe I have EFS demo. So if we go to keys, ls, I have EFS demo set up. So I'm pretty good. Pretty good. So set up that. And then I'm going to specifically put it in my network, which is EFS demo here. Assign it any of that, and I'm going to enable auto assign IP address. I'm going to select my specific EF security group, the one that I set up, and I like to use GP3 because it's more efficient and it's generally better. So what I'm going to do is I want to make just 2 of those. So we are going to emulate, like, it's a company. If we have 1,000 people, we can spin up 1,000 instances, yeah. But in this case, we're only going to use 2 to try to explain what happens. So let's launch those particular instances and wait for them to spin up. So let's come here, and then let's wait for them to spin up. Okay, so now I have both of these they're specifically open. So I have these working. Now let's get into it. So let's talk about instance 1. So I'm going to open up a terminal. This is going to emulate a workstation, for example. So I'm going to cd into a Makeezer, and I'm going to SSH into them. So with that, let me copy this. I'm going to get this public IP. Perfect. So I'm logged in here, and I can open in another terminal or another tab. Yeah. So with this other tab, same thing. And this time I can use the second one. I can use the second one. Okay, so now we are logged in both. So this is 10.0.1.0. These are private IP addresses, and this is this 10.0.5. You can see the 2 different ones. Yeah. So now that we're logged in here, Now that we logged in, let's try something. PWD, so we're here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a directory. We're going to create a directory where we want to mount this file. So let's call this is person A, person B. This is a shared drive. So you want to mount our drive onto a particular directory. So we're going to call this, I'm going to basically call this work. Let's make a directory. This guy is going to make a directory and call it, let's call, this guy calls it, let's see, all of them call it work. Yeah, both of them just call this work stuff. Yeah, so you have work, same as this guy. Let's mkdir, let this guy might call it a different one. Let's say work stuff, right? Pretty good. So after making this, now we need to mount our EFS. So we just come back here and then open your EFS, then click on attach. Then you're going to use either via IP or via this. So we're going to mount via DNS. We're going to come here and say click on this. So let me paste. So ls, yes. So if I come here and let me paste this, say sudo mount. So obviously I need sudoer permissions to mount. -t means type. We are mounting an NFS volume, and -o the flags. So version of NFS is 4.1. Read buffer size or write buffer size, and a whole load of this. Yeah, there's a whole lot of this that you can actually read about. So after that, we mount all this, and then we mount it into the directory that we want. And the directory that we want it mounted is work. So bam, we mount it. So now there's a problem. We're saying we can see when you get bad option for 705 system, you might need to mount an SP. Now when you get something like this, yeah, when you get a problem like this, it simply means what you need to do is you need to, how do you call it, you need to install utilities. Yeah, you need to install utilities, basically utilities. Yes, so when you get a problem like this, where the hell is my problem? So when you get something like this, it means you need to mount NFS. So so let's do sudo apt update. Let's update that first. Let's update first. Okay. Just do an update. So after doing an update, we want to install NFS utilities. So after that, you're simply going to say sudo install NFS common. Now this would be very different for different distros. If you're using Amazon Linux, for example, it's going to be a different thing. Yeah. So we are installing NFS that. So yeah. So it basically it was not able to mount because it doesn't know what to do, because the utility for mounting doesn't exist to it. So after that, doing that, then you can come back here and say sudo mount, then you let it. So when you do that, should work. Perfect. That means it has actually worked. So we're perfectly okay. We can go back here as well. If I come here and do the same thing on this other instance, it says mount does not exist. Sorry. So ls. So if I do ls and then I set up, so I'm mounting it to the directory called work stuff. Yeah. So you see, you get a bad option. So sudo. I usually like to update my sources. Always update your sources first before you want to install something. It's a very good practice. Yeah. It makes sure everything is right. We have no dependency issues. Okay, pretty good. Fully updated. So now you can come here and say sudo apt install NFS common. NFS common. Okay, so good. So now if we decide to paste our touch sudo mount t, and then we mount it to work stuff, we are perfect now. So now we are perfectly okay. Our work stuff now look. So how would you test? So we would simply cd into work, right? Now these two, we are accessing this drive from two different places, yeah, from two different places. So things like permissions, yeah, things like permissions. So when you're accessing this drive from two different computers, something called POSIX compliance stands. So things like permissions, they are all enforced. So permissions are all enforced. Let's try to do something like make, let's say for example ls, for example. So let's say work stuff, this is basically a studio. Let's talk about this being a studio. And in this studio there is a folder called assets. Assets, there, your assets that you're working with. It's maybe a film studio. Assets, so we have ls, so assets work. Can mkdir as well. Assets, I can talk about raw footage. So ls. So I have assets, I have raw, and then I can say submit. So I can say, for example, after downloading all that, I can say there's one called submit. So let's assume that I'm the one who is setting this up so that other employees can use. So I've created all this. So there's one called raw assets. So if somebody wants to work with, you know, raw files that have been shot, they use them, and assets, you know, for how do you call it, I'm not sure, compositing stuff basically, right? Good. So now we have these three. So how would you, if you come back here for example and do an ls, I'm not sure, ls, let me see, ls work stuff, did I sudo ls pwd, for example, home ubuntu, ls work stuff. Sorry, I was making things in the wrong directory. I'm supposed to cd into work stuff. Yes, I'm supposed to cd into work stuff, and then let's try if you have permissions, make directory, let's call it assets. Sorry for that, let's call it assets. Okay, so I have no permissions to create anything here. So far I have no permissions to create anything inside here, so things are very compliant. Let's try if this one has permissions. pwd, let's see, do we have permissions to create? Let's see, mkdir, let's say we are creating assets, cannot create. So there is no permission, so we have no permissions to create anything. So if I cd back ls, so I have then chmod sudo chmod if I decide that others. So if I decide as sudo, I just give 7, so read write to that, to a user, and then also read write. Okay, I'm not going to work with permission, but I'm just going to give it all. If I give that all, which you should never do, I'm just using it for this, so that makes our life easier. So if I do that and then I cd to work, if I cd to work, so if I'm mkdir and I say assets, I say raw footage, I also say submit, and I can also say trailer. So if I do ls, see, I have permissions, so I have done that. If I come here ls, you can see they're all basically done. So now I give permissions everywhere, so even this guy can. But depending on what permissions you give, somebody who created a particular directory or folder is the only person who can create it and delete it basically. So now I gave permission always. So you can see what I create here is basically here, because they're basically using the same, they're basically accessing the same shared file. So we're good. So, and that is basically how stuff. So if you download the stuff in here, you're going to get. So I should probably look for something to download. So let me see, where can I download wget? I need to download something inside here. Let me see, do I have something? Okay, so you know what, we're going to try something else. So let's leave those two at that point. So next thing we're going to do is let's open an S3 bucket. So let's open an S3 bucket. Let me open an S3 bucket in this case. So let's open an S3 bucket. I want us to open an S3 bucket. I wanted to open these 3 buckets. So let's see, do we have any buckets here? So let's see, let's open S3 bucket. No bucket. So let's create 1 bucket and say let's call this movie let's call this one films. Let's call this one, I just want to set something up. Films. Films, choose a bucket, ACL. I want to make this public. So I'm going to enable ACLs. Block, I'm going to make sure that I want to make this super public. PS, making a bucket public is definitely, it's one of those not very good ideas. So make sure you know exactly. Bucket name should be should always be 59. Let me see, that's film 59 should be okay. That's actually unique. So we're going to have film 59, and within this I'm going to come here and upload. I want to upload a particular file. Let me see a file, videos, Ninja Kamwe. Let me download that is 97. So I'm going to upload. I want to upload that specifically here. I want to upload this. Just give it a little bit of time as it uploads. Okay, so it's uploaded. So I want to come here and I want to allow for permissions. So public access block, it's off. So bucket policy block public access settings. Okay, that is done. And I want to bucket policy provide that. So I want to go to ACLs, access control list, and then everyone, I want to be able them to read. I want to be able the public to be able to read this. So I understand the effect of this. So that is pretty good. So if I come back to my bucket and I have films 59 and I have this, and if I copy the URL, if I copy the URL here, you can see this is why it's not public yet. It's not public. It's not public. This is not public yet. Okay, let's see. Permissions, ACLs, edit, read and read that, understand, save changes. So if I copy that URL, object URL, let's copy object URL, right, it's able to download. So that is pretty good. So we can simply come here and say in work stuff, let's talk, we can cd into raw, for example. Let's say this is a raw file. So let's say we want to work with this. So we can wget that link, paste it here. As you can see, when I'm loading files, good. So we can even do that once again. We get a second. That is 297 MB, 3 MB, that MB. I'm loading it again. We're trying to populate our stuff. Basically, pretty good. We're good. We're good. So if you do an ls, we have that many versions of Ninja Kamwe. So cd, so ls, we have ls. So now we have that many versions of Ninja Kamwe. Now basically, if you come back to EFS, our EFS was 6 KB in the beginning. This is our 6 KB. Now there's usually a very large latency for until when this realizes, until when this updates. When it updates, it is going to update with the number, with the size of all the data that we've actually downloaded in. So it's going to scale in and out. Now it takes a lot of time. Sometimes it takes an unreasonable amount of time. I would think with AWS it would be something that's real time. It doesn't happen for me. Now, so now that we're done with that, we're pretty good. So we're personally okay. So we're good. So we have raw files, submit, trailer, and stuff. So so what do we want to do now? So now sometimes you have an EFS file. EFS isn't it's good, it works, but sometimes we have things like S3 bucket is usually a better way of archiving your data. What if you're a studio? Obviously you have worked on other animations before and you want to reuse techniques and other assets and things like that. How do you do it? Come saying we are going to now integrate this with AWS S3 and Datasync. If you don't know about Datasync, you know about it now. So you're going to do this with AWS Datasync. So Next thing we're going to do is we want us to create a new S3 bucket. So we're going to come here to S3 bucket. Okay, I guess where is the S3 bucket? So we have S3 bucket. So let's talk about S3 bucket. Let's create an S3 bucket and call it film. Let's call it, what studio are we using? We're talking about Mappa. Mappa Creative. Let's talk about Mappa Creative. Let's talk about its Mappa Creative. Let's just call it Mappa Creative Archive. Mappa Creative Archive. Yeah, so Mappa Creative. So it's archive. We don't need to be public. This is going to be internal, so we don't need it to be public. And we create a bucket. So there's no S3 bucket called Mappa Creative Archive. Okay, let's create. So Mappa is a studio, obviously. It's one of the studios. So within this, let's say for example this, we have let's say we need let's just create a folder. So in bucket we create a folder. Folders are called prefix. So in this case we're going to create a folder called a prefix called let's say compositing stuff. I don't know what we're compositing inside here. It's the first thing that came to mind. So compositing dash. So compositing composited yeah, whatever. Okay, create, or you can, yeah, okay, let's just call it that. So I've created a prefix called compositing. Yeah. So let's say in the way we composite stuff, it's usually something very standard. So within composite, let's say let's just add a random file like this is Dune. Dune is too big. Downloads. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so I have some things here. Within that, let's have some data that we want to do. We're going to have like datas. Let's do like, okay, let's do 3. So those are the things that we want to composite it. So let's say we upload those. So then compositing. So we have a lot of files. So this is just technically we're working with succeeded, all uploaded. Yeah. So these are uploaded. Cool. We're done. So close. So let's think, we want to reuse this for compositing. Yeah. And giving access to this, it makes it easier. So everybody's already working with shared file. We can actually get this and sync them to that directory. Yeah. So we call this compositing basically. So we call that compositing. So so basically we're going to come there and compositing. So boom, we are good. We're good. Okay. So we're basically okay. We're basically okay. So what do we have there? Finally. So we have compositing. So now we want to sync this in an S3 bucket. We want to sync. We basically want to sync them with. We want to sync them with. We want to sync them here. We want to sync them with our EFS file share, basically, right? This. I want to sync them with this. I hope you still. Sometimes the loop ends because so usually I like to do htop. Well, htop runs and the loop doesn't break, so let's just do htop for both. Pretty much okay. So we are good up to that point. So now let's come back to Mappa Creative. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open Datasync. We're going to open Datasync. This is Datasync. So Datasync, just like it syncs, it basically it automates your processes, how you can sync data throughout. So we come here and then we want to create one task. Yeah. Then in this task we're going to come here. And then we're going to choose a location. So we're going to choose a source. Where do you want the data to come from? So we're going to come to an S3 bucket. Yeah. And then in this S3 bucket, choose a location for S3 bucket. Choose location for S3 bucket. Yeah. So this location, it's Mappa archives. Yeah. And then Mappa archive. What do you want? What do you want from Mappa archive? So we want when we come to S3 bucket Mappa, and then we want mapper creatives, and then compositing. So we come here, mapper, and then compositing. So we are basically compositing. So we are in the compositing directory. So we have mapped this and then compositing. So and then an IAM role, we auto generate an IAM role. Then we go next. So now we want destination. Where are we choosing? What is the destination? Where do we want to take? So destination is an EFS file system, and file system is this, yeah. And where do we want to mount this? Yeah. So we can mount it directly in the root path of that. So we basically mount that in the root path. So choose a subnet. Subnet is just one. Security group is this same that we created. So this is going to mount that compositing to the root path, and then we go and then say next. So after next, do we have anything set watch? So okay, we can say content to scan. So for example, if we are scanning content, well, let's say we are scanning everything for a good name. So we can say let's talk about EFS demo task. Let's call that a name, and then we say do we want to when we want to scan content, we can decide, do we want to scan everything or specific files and objects. We can have a specific file and object, or we can use we can exclude within that particular directory what we want to scan, and you can have some sort of a pattern which is a regex to exclude. So in the transfer options, like, do you want to transfer only data that has changed, or you want to transfer all the data? Obviously transferring data that has changed is good, because if data is added, only that is transferred. And then transfer all data, obviously that is going to have a lot of effect, especially on bandwidth and your price, because you don't want to transfer data that's already, it's almost sort of like in idempotency tank. So let's only transfer data that is changed. So if we add data to our compositing, then only that data will be synced again back to our EFS file. And then we do that. Verify only the transfer data. So verification of your data in the destination. Let's use that by default. Then use available bandwidth. Keep, so we can say keep deleted files in destination even when deleted from source. So if, for example, you want to delete some data from your source S3 and you want to keep them in destination, you select that, or you don't, basically. So you have additional settings and stuff, yeah. And then frequency. So how often do you want to do this job? We can say you want it synced daily, or you want it synced weekly, yeah. So if daily, we can say daily at midnight we run this job so that everything works, because it's a studio and our S3 bucket is being done with this, and then we're good. So log watch, you can say create a log policy. Did we sign up for logging and stuff? Log basic. We can also say do not send the CloudWatch information. Okay, so let's say log basic information. Let's auto-generate, create that, and required to populate. Okay, there we're good, and then we create a task. So now we have created this particular task. So now we have a task that transfers data from there to that transfers data from here all the way back to the S3 bucket. So remember, this is our screen, ls. So we have assets, raw, and submit. Yeah. So if we run now, in this case, we're going to come here and start with defaults. So we're going to come here and we're going to run this job. So assuming everything is set up correctly, this job is supposed to transfer all the data inside that to our destination. So our task is currently running. Now, while this task runs, we can create another task. We can create another task, and in this task, we're going to create a source. So in this case, we're going to say configure source location, right? So create location. So in this case, our source is going to be in this case now going to be EFS. So you remember, if you came here, let's do ls. So in this case, you remember we have let's say submit. So for example, you've already worked on and composited and rendered everything, and you want to submit. So you want this to be taken to that S3 bucket and stored or archived, and when during release it can be used. So you pick it up, Virginia, and file system. So file system is this, the one that, and then we are mounting path. So the path we're mounting in this case is dash, and then it's submit. Submit is what we are mounting, right? We are mounting submit. Submit is what we're mounting in this case. Yeah. Choose a subnet. Let's just choose that. Security group, we're going to choose this, and then we're good. So now we have mounted the new path. We're going next. So in a new location, so now we want to destination. So destination, let's say we're going to come here to S3 bucket, and then S3 bucket is, let's call it Mapper Creative Archive, right? So we can pick where do we want it, in which storage tier we have. Let's talk about standard, and we can mount it to the root of this, and we go there and we are good, and we call it reverse demo task. Task. So we come here. Content to scan is everything. We need to scan everything, and only data that is changed to be moved, and by default data transferred. And schedule, we can say also this should be done daily. It should be done daily, or maybe it takes a week to actually come up with a fully working ini. So you can come and say weekly, and you can say weekly on let's say on Friday to submit at midnight, and everything works. And then boom, you come here and create a task. So now you create this task. So now these tasks, after you submit in the submit directory that we had here, in the submit directory, you probably submitted something. Yeah. So now you see in the submit directory. So now let's come back to our task. So we had two tasks running. Task one was this EFS demo task, and you can see task the task has run. We were supposed to run it fully anyway. We didn't look at, but basically task history. Let's look at task history. This one successfully ran. Let's look at it. Yes, so execution success, and it has executed successfully. I'm not sure how much data. It has transferred 2.3 megabytes of data, and now you can see all these images that were there. They are here. They're basically here now because we mounted it to the root. We could create a directory called what, and then mount it to that particular. But you can see they're basically being mapped here. Yeah, they're basically being mapped here. So what you can do is let's assume move I am let's move I am 202.3.5.1.1. Yes, to let's move to assets, right? Permission denied. Let's do sudo. Okay, so cd into did I move them to assets? No. I'm supposed to move this. I want to move them into the submit folder. Sorry. So sudo, let me sudo move sudo mv. Let's talk about I am 202.30 to submit. Let's move that, sorry, to submit directory. So cd into submit ls submit directory. So cd into submit, submit ls. So I have an image right now, and I want to transfer this image back to let's say this S3 bucket to Mapper Creative. Yeah, I want to transfer it to this S3 bucket. Now I'm going to create a folder, and I'm going to call no. I'm supposed to create a folder, but basically you get basically what this means. So I'm supposed to create a folder. So that was supposed to be mounted in root. Okay, it's not going to make any sense. You're not going to see anything that happened, but you get the entire idea. When I say that this transfers there, that transfers it back, and you can schedule it, and it just works, and it's so beautiful. Yeah, that is a way. Now in this case, obviously we're doing it in the cloud. You can actually do this. You have a VPC. You can have this on premises. You know, we can have a hybrid system where you have your people working on prem, working with the shared directory, and that is how you use EFS. And I'm not sure. Let's see if this has not updated yet. It still hasn't figured out that there is more than just 6 KB of data inside it. It's a shame that I'm finishing this video without it updating, but if you go try this at home, it's going to basically work for you. Otherwise, this video is getting really long because I don't edit anything. Everything I shoot is raw. That's why it's getting to 40 seconds. Otherwise, thank you.